The next question, we're staying in the USA, Dr. Sabin, if I could come to you with that, because our question actually mentions you specifically in his question, and perhaps this is a reflection on my introduction or lack of explanation, I suppose, in the vital and important role you play. He actually says that when you introduce Dr. Zahid Khan Sahib, as I've done today as well, you say he's president of the Qadha board. And a few of the questions, friends of his, have rightly asked the question, what is the Qadha board? One isn't a Muslim, and the other is a Muslim but not belonging to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And he's then gone on to actually ask, what is the system of Qadha in Islam, and the issues of fatwa. So there's sort of three questions. One's this definition, one really is what the system is, and thirdly the element of fatwa, which we hear is quite liberally, sometimes somewhat unfortunately used in Islam. And who better to answer it than the president of the Qadha board? So over to you.
Well, after 100+ programs, I've been found out.
Well, there you go.
There's no more hiding for me in that respect.
You have to explain yourself, Dr. Saab, so there you are.
Well, the Qadha in Islam is a system, a legal system, whereby disputes are decided amongst members or amongst Muslims in that respect through a process of consented arbitration. So that is the loosely way of explaining that we have resolution of disputes which are decided upon by the Qadha through judgments given by qazis. We have a number of qazis who actually are able to discuss and decide upon disputes.
For the sake of the next question, which would then arise, what is a qazi?
A qazi is a judge who is a member of the Qadha board.
Okay.
So we have a number of qazis who are appointed and who are allocated cases of disputes, and therefore they decide upon disputes of that nature. This is actually from the history of Islam. If you look at that, then we find that obviously man interacts with different parts of society in different ways, and there can be problems that do arise from time to time. So the Islamic legal system recognizes that there is a need for resolution of disputes according to the law of Allah the Almighty through the revealed law. And this is where fiqh, which is a deep knowledge of the revealed law of the Holy Quran, the Hadith and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, upon which the arbitration of these disputes is based upon. The Holy Prophet ﷺ himself actually was the first judge, as we know, in Islam, and if there were disputes, that they were brought to him, and he would judge and arbitrate on those disputes in that manner. It is interesting that at the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ in Medina, it was not only the Muslims who he gave judgment upon, but it was on a wider basis that other members of the society also brought their disputes to him. This process of arbitration and dispute resolution continued through Khilafat, the Khulafa'i Rashidin. Hazrat Abu Bakr himself decided upon disputes, but it was during the Caliphate of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu that because Islam had spread far and wide, it was not possible for him to be able to listen to every dispute and make a decision in that respect, that he was the one who appointed qadis in the realm of Islam. And they were great companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ who were appointed. Hazrat Zaid bin Thabit, a well-known companion of the Prophet ﷺ, was appointed the Qadi of Medina. Hazrat Abdullah bin Masud radiallahu anhu, another well-known companion of the Prophet ﷺ, was appointed a Qadi of Kufa in Baghdad. So therefore, in different parts of the Muslim world, there were Qazis who would actually consider disputes and would give arbitration decisions based upon that. Keeping that in mind, the Jamaat Ahmadiyya also attaches importance to the history of Islam and how disputes were decided that time. It was the Khalifatul Masih, the second of the Jamaat Ahmadiyya, who actually formally organized a Qadha within the Jamaat, so that members could have their arbitration carried out by the Qadha. And in different parts of the world that the Jamaat is, we have different Qadha boards in each country, so that they are able to also listen to disputes and arbitrate upon these disputes in that manner. But we base our decisions based upon the Holy Quran, the traditions of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have the greatest benefit that we have a leader amongst us, that we have the Khalifatul Masih, who is the final authority again, even in these disputes, that they can be taken up as a final appeal to the Khalifatul Masih, and he will arbitrate on those disputes in that manner. So this is, broadly speaking, the manner in which Qadha board organizes itself in different parts of the world. It's interesting that Ahmadis, wherever they live, are law-abiding citizens. This is the first and foremost thing.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What's the legal status vis-a-vis the law of the land?
I mean, according to Islam, we have to abide by the law of the land wherever we live, as Muslims must do in whichever part of the world that they live in. So in terms of the civil law, the criminal law, we are bound by the rules that we live in every society. There is no question of that. But this is no sort of paralegal system which is not accepted by the community, because in many parts of the world, community-based arbitration is something that is encouraged by the legal systems of the countries themselves, because it takes away the burden from their own courts. And it is also consented arbitration. You see, both parties have to agree to have their dispute resolved through arbitration, through the community-based arbitration, and therefore there is no coercion as far as that is concerned. So the law of the land allows for that to take place. So that is the important thing, that we live within the law of the land, but we have a system which is recognized, or which is actually, they do say you should have your arbitration by the community based if that is possible. And from the members' point of view, it also saves them much expense and time and troubles by going outside into the courts to have their disputes resolved that way. So it's a win-win situation for both the legal system and for the members of the community, that they are able to come to the Qadha, where they can bring a dispute and have the arbitration carried out by that method through the
Jazakumullah, Dr. We're into the sort of last 5 minutes or so of the program, but I think that's very important about the legal parallels that one can draw with the law of the land, and I think it's clear on that. And just very short question before I come to Wahab Saab on the next part of it, though, in terms of whatever the law of the land requires you to do, or the people involved in the disputes to do, that the courts and whatever the courts need to do, that will run its course in parallel?
Absolutely, we have no overlap, that if there are things which are outside the jurisdiction of the Qadha, and there are matters, the Qadha will only deal with civil disputes. Any criminality involved in any dispute, the Qadha will not deal with that at all. So that is for the law of the land. And if there is any overlap, then the Qadha will say that this is beyond our jurisdiction, this should be taken outside to the law of the land and should be decided in that forum at that time.
So in the case if there's a civil marriage conducted alongside the religious marriage, the dissolving of the civil marriage is through courts. Absolutely. And the religious marriage would be through the Qadha.
Just as in this country, the marriage has to be registered under the law of the land, then a decree to actually cancel that marriage has also been taken outside the Qadha board into the civil courts that are present.
Jazakumullah. Just as a sort of final question that Mansoor Saab's also asked, fatwas which are issued. What is a fatwa, he's asking, which we hear a lot about, and who, more importantly, he asks, can issue it?
Yes. It's more or less like the Qadha board, but here the Qadha board deals with issues, disputes between people, civil disputes and so on. But fatwa is when you want an explanation of something that is going on either in society or in your family or about yourself or about the world as a whole in the light of Islamic teachings. Okay. So it is trying to find out how a Muslim should conduct himself or herself in one matter or the other. So it's a degree as such. Yes, and generally it is the head of the community, the Khalifatul Masih in this case. Like he said, the Holy Prophet ﷺ himself, people would ask, and then he would say that there's how to go about it. After him, his Khalifas also took over. And then during the time of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, on whom be peace, that is the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, while he lived, he himself took over such questions. And then after him, his first Khalifa. Then the second Khalifa, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Hazrat Muslim Maud, may peace of Allah be upon him, he then formalized it, you know, by appointing some people who will do who will give the responses to the questions that people would ask. Names like Maulana Hazrat Maulana Sawar Shah comes, Hafiz Roshin Ali, and then later on Maulana Bulata became secretary, and so on and so forth. And then we had Maulana Saifur Rahman Sahib. And they had, I think the last Mufti was for 46 years, and they had about 5,500 fatwas that they had given. Questions that people ask, and then in the light of the Holy Quran and the traditions, they give answers. But those things become valid only after they have received the consent of the Khalifa of the time. It is the Khalifa of the time who appoints them, and he appoints people who are very knowledgeable, those who have full, you know, knowledge about the Holy Quran, about the traditions, about the jurisprudence of Islam, and then they are appointed to take care of those things. So it is different from Qadha in the sense that Qadha, you go there to settle your disputes, yes. Because we don't want that there should be disputes among people. Whenever there is a misunderstanding, the Quran says, as-sulhu khair. It's better to reconcile rather than to let people go on fighting. But that in this particular case of fatwa, we are only asking for explanation about an event or about the way to conduct yourself.
Gentlemen, Jazakumullah Wahab Sahib, thank you for that detailed answer on fatwa. I think the other thing sometimes yourself about fatwas very briefly is that you know they're issued so liberally that people misunderstand what the divine basis is, or the religious basis rather is.
Yes, that's true, and especially the more, you know, media-worthy ones, they're always the ones who get the headline. They make the headlines of, you know, and the most well-known one that comes to mind is the death fatwa against Salman Rushdie. So everyone heard about the word fatwa probably for the first time then in the non-Muslim world. But I have a feeling you're about to emit a decree yourself now to end the program, aren't you?
I am, far be it to be called a fatwa, but certainly not. We have to listen to our producers and directors, and I think we're up against the clock here, but it just falls upon me once again. Jahangir Saab, Dr. Zahid Saab, and Abdul Wahab Azam Sahib. Jazakumullah, thank you ever so much for your detailed, scholarly, and very inspiring answers. And I'm sure our audience is well informed and better informed. Certainly I am, for one. And of course, to the viewers at home, thank you, Jazakumullah, for your questions. Without you, Faith Matters would not be the program that it is. Just as a final reminder to all of you at home, for any questions, thoughts, comments, observations of what you've heard today, or indeed any questions you may have yourself, the email address once more is faithmatters@mta.tv. That's faithmatters, one word, @mta.tv. Until the next time, from all of us here on Faith Matters, Assalamu alaikum.